The Tea Biz podcast delivers tea news that you need to know. A recap of the week's major headlines with commentary and cultural trends hosted by Dan Bolton. It is the voice of origin for tea professionals and enthusiasts worldwide.
Tea is a fascinating and intricate topic, far more complex than anyone can master. Our expertise resides in storytelling by professionals who know the tea lands from birth and speak the native tongue. We believe that transparency is grounded at origin, which is why the Tea Biz portal enlists 40 voices skilled in 12 languages to tell the story of tea. Hello, everyone. Here are this week's headlines. Tea supply chains are undergoing intense scrutiny. An online tea traceability tracker permits consumers to compare corporate tea supply chains. Tea auction prices remain firm as inflation ebbs. And DAVIDsTEA is adding tea bars to its retail locations. Plus, Harvard University researchers report that people who consume sugary drinks regularly, 1 to 2 cans a day, have a 26% greater chance of developing type 2 diabetes. Mixed alcohol, sports and energy drinks, fruit juices, and soda are the worst. Unsweetened tea is the perfect alternative, according to Mumbai-based TeaFit, which bottles award-winning blends of botanicals and tea. TeaFit founder Jyoti Bharadwaj shares her vision of sugarless bliss with Aravinda Anantharaman. In memoriam, Govind Johar, the ex-chairman of J. Thomas & Company, passed this week. He joined the company in 1955, was named to the board of directors in 1970, and became managing director in 1980. He was chairman of India's top brokerage until he retired to Pune in 1992. He was 89. More in a minute, but first, this important message.
What makes a perfect cup of Ceylon tea? The perfect cup is from the tea businesses that ensure the protection of all the children living within their tea estates. We salute Kailani Valley, Telawakili, Bogawantalawa, Harana, and Eliptia tea estates. Support Save the Children, Sri Lanka.
The tea industry's supply chain has undergone intense scrutiny since 2020, when global air transport, business travel, and intermodal shipping were simultaneously halted. In Europe, the scrutiny led to the introduction of a corporate sustainability due diligence directive recently passed by the European Parliament. The legislation requires companies to identify and address human rights and environmental violations up and down their supply chains. Firms will be assessed significant fines for social and environmental violations. The directive is awaiting ratification by EU member countries. Last month, the Business and Human Rights Resource Center, BHRRC, released its findings after surveying major tea companies to quantify human rights abuses in the tea sector. The BHRRC's online Tea Transparency Tracker documents 70 allegations involving tea workers in 5 countries. 65 tea companies were asked to participate, of which 29 responded, and 20 agreed to disclose supply chain data publicly. 16 buyers were named in the allegations, including Betty's and Taylor's, Ekaterra and James Finley, Starbucks, Teavana, Tesco, Tetley, Twinings, Taifu, and Unilever. 11 of these companies will be covered under the scope of the EU Sustainability Directive. The report, titled Boiling Point, Strengthening Corporate Accountability in the Tea Industry, found that 90% of female tea workers in Kenya have been victims or witnessed sexual or physical abuse. Tea workers in Assam earn only 1/5 of the living wage, with a pay gap between male and female workers of up to 50%. Many suppliers experience precarious contractual arrangements. Kate Jelly, who authored the study, described 3 general categories of abuse: The first is linked to wages, benefits, and living standards. The second identifies health and safety infringements. She also documented incidents in which workers were intimidated for associating, sometimes with organized labor. She said that 22 of the alleged abuses occurred in India, and she speculated that most abuses go unreported. Quote, nevertheless, they provide a foundation for interrogating major tea companies' commitment to effectiveness in identifying, preventing, and responding to rights issues associated with the tea industry, reads the report. Before the report was published, participating companies were encouraged to respond to allegations and describe the policies in place to protect health and welfare of workers. The tracker permits consumers to compare responses between companies on policies such as minimum wage, freedom to associate, access to safe water and sanitation, and equal pay for equal work. Business insight. Corporations generally oppose the shift from voluntary to mandatory due diligence, but investors say the current ESG rating market isn't functioning properly. U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen expressed concerns about the, quote, negative unintended consequences, end quote, of the EU forcing companies to more closely monitor their supply chains. Inflation growth in the U.S. eased to 4% in May. According to Eurostat, inflation in Europe rose to 7% in April, but is also easing to an estimated 6.1% growth. Food prices set records worldwide in 2022 and remain stubbornly high, but have been trending down since last summer, according to the Food and Agricultural Organization. The food prices continue to increase in the U.S., driven by labor and transport costs. Economists globally last fall predicted a recession in the third quarter of 2023. That seems less likely, but there is ample evidence growth is slowing. Globally, the growth estimate was revised downward to 2.1% according to OECD, which estimates India's economy is expanding at 6%, China's is growing at 5.4%, and Indonesia's growth rate is 4.7%. The estimate for the U.S. is a more modest 1.6%, and for Europe, it's 0.9%. Europe is currently experiencing a technical recession. Russia's economy will contract by 1.5% in 2023. The U.S. Consumer Price Index year-to-date is well down from last summer's 9% peak, quote, though it remains about twice as fast as was normal during the onset of the coronavirus in 2020, according to the New York Times. The Federal Reserve's efforts to slow the economy appear to be working after 10 straight interest rate increases. The economics of food are less responsive. According to Statistics Canada, prices for food purchased in stores reached a 41-year high in Canada in October 2022. Fertilizer, fuel, and chemical inputs remain costly. The long-term average price for anhydrous ammonia globally was $637 per ton from 2009 to 2020. This month, nitrogen fertilizers are averaging $1,116 per ton, and in January 2022, anhydrous ammonia spiked at more than $1,600 per ton following the invasion of Ukraine, a major supplier. Rising wages are also a concern as real wage growth is dipping into negative figures in many countries. Tea is a labor-intensive industry that employs 13 million globally. Quote, income inequality and poverty will rise if the purchasing power of the lowest paid is not maintained, end quote, writes Gilbert Humbo, Director General of the International Labor Organization. There are positive signs. The Economist Intelligence Unit reports that prices fell from $3 per kilo on average in 2022 to $2.70 per kilo in the first quarter of 2023. Tea prices at auction are generally soft in India and Kenya, lower than in 2022, but easing as the cost of transporting goods declines. But, quote, prices will likely remain close to $3 per kilo and could rise higher if adverse weather persists, according to EIU. Most tea is consumed within the 48 countries where it is grown. Consumption is steadily increasing, outpacing production, and likely to result in a 200,000 metric ton deficit in the coming year. The situation is most acute in Sri Lanka, where production fell to a 26-year low of 250 million kilos in 2022 and continues to fall. It's down 2.8% year-on-year through April. This is most evident on large farms where tea fields are idle. Prime Minister Ramesh Parthrana said small tea growers now contribute 77% of the country's total tea production. He observed that the biggest challenge facing Sri Lanka is the shrinking export market globally. Experiential tea retail is gaining momentum. This week, Montreal-based DAVIDsTEA announced opening an in-store tea bar at the Eaton Centre location in Toronto, with plans to remodel a third of its retail locations to add tea bars by year-end. The tea bars offer an exclusively curated and seasonally changing menu that showcases the wide variety of beverages at DAVIDsTEA, according to the company. Consumers can expect to discover hot and iced tea lattes, matcha, along with tea pop and tea pop lemonades. The vegan-friendly menu exclusively features oat milk to amplify the flavor experience and cater to a wider audience. DAVIDsTEA addresses the void in the specialty takeout tea market through these innovative, handcrafted, to-go beverages, reads the press release. DAVIDsTEA Chief Executive Officer and Chief Brand Officer Sarah Siegel said, quote, "We are eager for this next step in our journey and cannot wait to see how a new focus on tea beverages can open up a world of tea lifestyle and interest for our customers. Crafted, premium, amazing tasted sparkling tea and tea lattes are a great way to explore flavors and discover the many ways to enjoy loose-leaf tea." End quote. The tea bars are a response to consumer demand. The company soft-launched the concept in late 2022 in its home province of Quebec at the CF Carrefour Laval location and refined it with a second location at Les Galeries La Capitale early this year. Ottawa's Reduce Centre and Vancouver's Pacific Centre locations are next in line in the national rollout. DAVIDsTEA operates 18 locations in Canada. In November, Siegel told Business Journal that the company intends to enter the U.S. wholesale market and introduce a line of ready-to-drink teas. DAVIDsTEA is currently sold in 3,800 grocery stores, pharmacies, and big box outlets. Business Insight. DAVIDsTEA shops offer over-the-counter samples and tastings before the pandemic forced the company to close more than 230 locations in the U.S. and Canada. But beverage selections were limited to loose-leaf teas bought in bulk and stored in large tins. The new concept is beverage-forward with standard versions, hot and iced beverages, and carbonated teas. Aravinda Anantharaman in Bengaluru reports on tea auction prices for sale 23.
India tea price report for sale 23 for the week ending 10th June 2023. So far, the shortfall in rain has been recorded as about 30 to 40% in Assam and 15 to 25% in North Bengal. And the success of the second flush now rests on rains expected and hoped for this week and next. So in sale 23 of the auctions, Guwahati witnessed good demand for both leaf and dust. Hindustan Unilever was active. The volume on offer was higher than the previous week, and prices were also marginally higher with fewer outlots. In Kolkata, offerings were higher, fewer outlots, and all grades barring Darjeeling performed well. Kochi saw good demand for Orthodox leaf. Kunal probably had the best week among all the auction centers. with strong demand for leaf grades, with CTC leaf having an 99% sale volume and orthodox 92%. The dust market was also very good and prices averaged just above 100 rupees. Exporters were active for all tea grades.
And now, a word from our sponsor.
Hello, I'm Bogdan, a passionate tea drinker and the inventor of the ultimate tea machine, the Brew Maker 1. Preparation is key to making fine tea. Sequential steepings deliver the best taste possible and unlock the true value of whole leaf teas and botanicals. Brew automates that process without using any pots or capsules. This simple-to-operate, smartphone-controlled device stores steeping profiles to consistently make great tea at the push of a button. Brew also reduces time, waste, and energy. That's because I engineered the brew to remember control settings for temperature, brewing time, and quantity. Using my patented process lets you stack steeps simply and conveniently.
Harvard University researchers report that people who consume sugary drinks regularly, 1 to 2 cans a day, have a 26% greater chance of developing type 2 diabetes. Mixed alcohol, sports and energy drinks, fruit juices, and soda are the worst. Unsweetened tea is the perfect alternative, according to Mumbai-based TeaFit, which bottles award-winning blends of botanicals and tea. TeaFit founder Jyoti Bharadwaj shares her vision of sugarless bliss with Aravinda Anantharaman.
Jyoti Bharadwaj launched TeaFit in 2021, offering a range of iced teas that are unsweetened. She has since added unsweetened premixes to the product portfolio. For a country with a large population suffering from diabetes, she says unsweetened beverages are much needed and tea offered the perfect vehicle to create it. More recently, Jyoti was featured on Shark Tank India, where she secured 5 million rupees in investment. Jyoti talks to us about tea, ready-to-drink category, and how her brand is helping tea shed its fussy image. Thanks for joining us here on TeaBiz, and it's great to have you. And congratulations on what you've done.
Thank you so much, Aravinda, for having me for this conversation. I have had a rather longer route to entrepreneurship. I wasn't born to be an entrepreneur, nor do I come from a family of any kind of business people. We are the typical service class India that focuses on education, focuses on grades, and become an ace engineer, get into consulting, to MBA. So that's the route I kind of had for myself as well. So I am an engineer like almost half of the country, and then I did my MBA from Indian School of Business. Somewhere in the middle, for a couple of years, I did do work in a large IT company. I think what that taught me is what I don't enjoy or what I'm not cut out to do. And thankfully, I learned that fairly early in life. And after that, I did my MBA. After that, I've just worked in building startups. So I would say built 2 startups from scratch. One still thrives in the consumer space called Oven Fresh. It was a Chennai-based company for whom we started right from the ideation, branding, all of that. And to see it thrive 10 years after the brand I've built, it's very satisfactory for somebody who enjoys working in startups. So after 2 startups, I was honestly beginning to get a little bit bored. All the typical middle class liabilities were taken care of. I had paid off my huge MBA education loan. I had a nice house in Mumbai, and then that was pretty much it. I was taken care of in that sense. So that itch to do something meaningful, something beyond the next job, I think that kind of was gnawing at me a little bit. And also my kids were really young. So Mumbai, traveling for 2 hours one way was also I wasn't enjoying staying away from my young one for so long every day. So somewhere in the middle, I had traveled to Japan quite a few times, and I really enjoyed the unsweetened beverage space of Japan, and just the pride that the Japanese folks have in traditional cuisines that somehow pick up or resonate from their, traditional teas and herbs and their botanicals. And so for every cola or sugary beverage you would find in a vending machine, you would find 20 different types of teas that are made from grains, from tea, oolong tea, or green tea, matcha, you name it. And I was like blown away with the kind of selection that was there and the kind of access that people had to good products, to products that are good for you. And I always wondered that, when I visit a beverage aisle here back home, there are just broadly three categories. There is cola, there is fruit-based, sugar-based beverages, and then energy drinks. And somewhere in the middle is where you have to make a choice as the consumer. And then kind of the whole blame is pinned on that the Indian consumer wants things sweet. But if you look at the option, it is so limited that you can't really blame him or her for picking what he does. I come from a diabetic family. Everybody, like my parents, are diabetic, and I am borderline diabetic myself. So it was a no-brainer that I enjoyed something like that. And India has now 10 crore declared diagnosed diabetics. And so it's a serious number, and somewhere I felt that the responsibility does lie on brands that are irresponsibly pushing such products through mainstream marketing and kind of making it cool to have this 10 times a day, and associating it with aspiration, with happiness, and with all of the other strokes of marketing. And so like the seed was there in me to build something responsible, to build something intentional, where it's not just less bad for you, things that are good for you that can be bottled.
I think somewhere I also feel that we in India have become so used to things being slightly exaggerated in flavors, right? More spice, more sweet, more deep fried, and we like
Right.
tend to associate those with excess of something equals better taste. I think that's sort of what we've been given. So on the production side, what did you have to do to make sure that you still retain the the integrity of what you want the product to have, but without compromising on flavor?
So I would like to take a minute to highlight that I was clueless. I was as clueless about the business as the next person on the street. So it did take me longer to figure out. Like I literally Google on day one of quitting my job, how do you make iced tea at scale, or which are the herbs that taste less bitter, or how does aqueous extraction work. So like everything started from good old Google, and then very soon I realized there's no way I can do this myself. I need to find people who know more than me, kind of playing Einstein. So I would say that my little bit of whatever success I've achieved, I think that's more to do with the kind of talent I have been able to convince to kind of come on board, more than being able to solve things quickly myself. My broad stroke problem statement was that a product, we want a healthy beverage with no sugar, which is a base in tea, and it has its own blend of herbal formulation, ayurvedic formulation that helps you fight the stresses of modern life. Like, you are eating all sorts of things, you're always on the go, you're always ordering in food. So something that would, that could help you with digestion, that could help you just feel light, and that doesn't kind of add to the sleepiness and like that. But we did struggle to come to the right flavor initially in the absence of sugar, because first you take out sugar, then you add a blend of 15 herbs, and some herbs as bitter as noni fruit. Like, I'm not sure how aware are you, but it's really bitter, noni fruit. So you can't really take even a spoonful of it. So how do you kind of get the actives, but at the same time it's very good for you, like it's very good for your skin health, for digestive health. So we wanted the actives, but we didn't want the bitterness. So that took a lot of time to get right. Then it did taste bitter for, I think, first three productions. Like when you would consume, it wasn't the greatest to taste. And I knew if it doesn't taste great, no matter how good for you it is, nobody's going to drink it. So we reworked the formulation. We added licorice to it. We added cinnamon to it. Things that kind of cool your mouth into making the flavor, the palate a little more rounded, a little more like a faint hint of sweetness. And so I think a lot of iterations is what it took for us to get to the product. we also didn't want to lose the delicate flavor, the notes of the tea. Like we use our tea from, single estate in Assam called Dendai Tea Estate, and another similar estate in Kerala for the green tea. And initially, when we were doing it, would always become the tea would be too strong, and it would just be very astringent, like it would have lost its finer top notes. So then we kind of redid the entire fabrication of the brewing process. Like the manufacturing plants in India are typically made for either carbonated beverages or they're made for fruit-based beverages. There is no like iced tea or brewing concept other than beer and that industry. So in the mainstream bottling, it's only for either CSD, carbonated soft drinks, or for fruit. So for our tea brewing, herb brewing, we had to set up a whole different line wherein you brew it outside the filling line at the temperature at which you want, and then introduce the brew into the main filling line. So it did take us a while for us to kind of figure out lots of failed experiments wherein the entire batch is on the floor because the filter got choked. So we've also kind of had a journey where, because we have done things from grounds up, we have done every possible thing that could go wrong, and therefore, we are now doing it right.
So how long did it take from the point when you started the R&D and to the first batch that you said, okay, I think we've cracked it?
14 months is what it took. Yeah, it did. From like the sketch of the product. And I also was a little bit ziddy in that sense that I didn't want anything, like I didn't want to take shortcuts. So I didn't want a bottle that existed. So this bottle you see was designed by Indian School of Design and Innovation. So it did take me some time to figure out, who would do the bottles for us. And when you're new, you kind of don't know the limitations of the industry. So I didn't know that if you have a bottle like this, it's hard for you to do hot fill because the bottle collapses. So I also figured out a lot of things along the way. Like I said, I've made every mistake I could have made, and I am still alive.
That itself calls for congratulations.
Yeah.
Yeah. But why tea? Why was your starting point tea?
I felt the kind of products I wanted to make was hard to do in a fruit-based beverage, and carbonated drinks I didn't want to touch in the beginning because I was anti everything that carbonated drinks stood for. And also I'm a tea person. So I don't know, when you said that, I feel like honestly, Aravinda, there are two kinds of entrepreneurs. One who get an opportunity and kind of grab at it, and one who kind of do things because they like it and they feel like it will find a wider appeal. I think I'm the latter. So I like tea. I love those beverages. So it started as a pet project of mine. I used to brew it in the kitchen, hibiscus tea and all sorts of tea, barley tea when I came back from Japan. And people around started liking it. So I was like, this is one thing I know how to do, and let me work on this. I also felt like it allowed for the botanicals to find a good home for being effective and kind of finding a synergized flavor. If you put the same thing in juices, it just tastes very off.
How did you choose Assam and Munnar as your source for tea? Any reasons?
There are bizarre reasons. My Nana ji used to make a lemon black tea, which was legendary in our whole locality. And he's no more, God bless his soul. But I think I was hooked on to that. So the first 2-3 things I wanted his lemon black tea. And also, Aravinda, if I tell you from a business perspective, the drink itself was alien to the Indian consumer. There was no unsweetened drink per se. There was an odd wild vitamin water or a couple of other drinks like that, but there was no drink with a personality of its own and was unsweetened. So there was a bit of unfamiliarity to begin with, and so we didn't want to make it further and unfamiliar, add 2 steps of alienation by creating a flavor that's not mainstream. So we wanted to go with 2 most mainstream flavors, which is lemon and peach in iced tea, and give that as to customers, saying, look, your lemon and peach iced tea could be this, So that's what we wanted to go ahead with, just making it less complex as an introduction, or making it less complex to decide the first purchase, the first trial. As a business owner, your holy grail is trials and then eventually repeats. So for a bootstrap brand, if you have to ensue trials, either your packaging has to be phenomenal, the name has to be really catchy and simple for you to understand. The product has to be really simple for you to understand. So for all of these reasons, we wanted to kind of keep the complications as minimum as possible. So we did a lemon black tea, and we did a peach green tea, and we did a barley tea, which was something that I personally liked a lot, and it has immense health benefits. And it would be tragic that it kind of stays in our books and people don't get to try it.
Would you say health is still the main marketing angle for tea? The new brands that are coming up. Do you think people are responding to health and wellness as in the marketing conversations, or is it flavor?
As a product first company, I would say if you don't have a strong product, no amount of positioning of the product will really get the customer pull. So first, the product has to be incredibly strong, which means it has to check all the boxes. If you ask me, Aravinda, what is important? Is the health angle important? Is the flavor important? Is the price point important? Is the availability important? I would say all of these four, if they are in place, only then there's a hope that customer will discover you, will decide to part with his money to try your product. So in my case, I was hell bent on finding the right flavor. So then you kind of have to always appeal to the health side. So we wanted the customers to, come for the flavor. Like we say, you flex on the flavor. Health is something we take care of you. It's something that is in the product, but you will come for the flavor.
Lovely. And now tell me about the Shark Tank experience. Why did you choose to go? What happened? How was it? And how's it been post that?
I don't think I chose. I think it chose me, because there were so many people who applied for it, and all great businesses, I would say, many far ahead in the journey than me. In fact, I applied last year also, Aravinda. I was 2 months into the business. I had done a sum total of 20,000 in revenue, and I had applied. So, the guts was always there. Even with 20,000 in revenue, I kind of went ahead. I was like, let me give it a shot. And I did get through all the rounds, even in the first season. But I was traveling when they wanted me to go for the audition. So I had to kind of skip it. This time also I applied, but I didn't apply with any hopes, honestly. I've seen all the season of Shark Tank US to know that it's almost fluke that you make it, or it's a stroke of luck also. So I would say that probably my story resonated with them, that I'm doing this single-handedly, or how committed I am to this space. So there are a couple of rounds of applications wherein they ask for what's your big vision, what's the big idea, what is it that you're building, what do your products look like, so broad strokes in the first round. And if you get shortlisted, then they call you for a second round, which is also a written round, but a fairly detailed one, in terms of revenue, in terms of product market fit, in terms of your footprints, all of that. And then you have to submit a 3-minute pitch, or a video pitch to them. And then if they like it, and they call you, and they called me. And that day I didn't have any baby care at home, so I took my kids with me on the day of audition. So they came with me on the audition. I got to the audition. So whoever apparently is in the audition has to show up for the final shoot. So I had to take them for the final shoot, even though I was not sure, how kids would behave. But I guess it went well. I am generally not a very camera-friendly person, but I felt like the kind of exposure that I'd been chipping away at slowly, brick by brick. This would solve for that overnight if I, made the most of the opportunity that came my way. And so I prepped for it. I rehearsed for it a couple of days, and then I went, and I had done the business in and out from day one, all by myself. So those answers you'll always have. If you've done something, you don't really have to prepare, because you've done it, so you know it in and out. So I felt like that came through well in the show. We got a lot of love. Our phones didn't stop ringing for weeks. We had 350 distributor inquiries overnight. Sales skyrocketed, website shut down. So all of the good things that a business faces, we faced all of that, and it has given us, like, catapulted us into a different stratosphere. So I was playing at a very small business level. Now I would say that we are fighting bigger problems. I have a bigger team overnight now. I was doing it with a couple of interns and a friend. Now I'll have like a legitimate team of people. So I would say to more than anything, people know about the brand. People know what we do. So the kind of exposure that the brand gets, I think it makes up for any inhibitions you have as a founder, that, should I go, should I not go? Am I cut out for this? What if they insult me on TV? And, all sorts of things kind of go through your head. But I think if you're a consumer brand, if you're at a stage where your product is available for people to buy, I think you should absolutely, do everything in your power to kind of try and get your 15 minutes on TV.
Are you still riding on the success of that? Do you think it has sustained until now?
So it doesn't sustain in the way that, so it becomes 100x in the first month, right? And then it slows to 5-6x of what you were doing. But the 5-6x, it would have taken you, that much time to get there on your own. So also a lot of doors open for you. It's hard to quantify, honestly, everything that kind of comes your way. Sales is one way to quantify, but just the number of opportunities that come your way, brands like Zepto, Blinkit, and other quick commerce platforms. If I was a nobody, which I was before Shark Tank, it's much harder to get into closed door, conversations like that and platforms like that. Just access becomes a lot more easier. If you've done well, thankfully my episode I think did well. So just access to the industry becomes easier. Like you could meet anybody you wanted to meet. Like I've been meeting people like Harsh Mariwala, and just being able to pick their brain, and for even a 5-minute conversation, it's a whole different mindset that it puts you into. You start to think what's possible. You start to think of bigger possibilities for yourself, for the brand, for what it can do. And, you start to believe in leapfrogging and not just building brick by brick, like, seminal moments like this will come in the life of a brand, and then you go building, one step at a time, but you would just take 100,000 kind of a leap. And so longevity and just building, putting your head down, I feel like moments like this will come and they will kind of change the course of the journey. And so this was one such milestone for us.
One of the things within the industry here also is the concern that, coffee is cool, tea hasn't been able to crack that,
Right.
and get younger, customers. And something like TeaFit would, I imagine, interest a lot of younger people as well. But so how does TeaFit fit into the larger, developments shaping in Indian tea?
So we feel like there is a ton of scope to make tea cool, and tea associated with elderly is, I think, an idea of yesterday, purely because it has not been, presented in the way with the amount of cool or the sass that coffee does. As a tea drinking country, I feel like there is an absolute wide open gap to create a brand that is intentional, that is responsible, that is cool, that aligns with the value systems of the young buyer today. We consider ourselves to be a tea brand before any other brand. So there's a lot of innovation that we are currently working on to innovate on different products and incorporate tea in it. Maybe chocolates, maybe throwing my hat in the ring right now, but we are working on those ideas that could kind of not just vertical extension of the product, but also taking it horizontally and seeing what else can we do with tea and what other products can we incorporate tea into. We are at a stage where the discerning young people want more than the traditional cola, energy drinks, and fruit-based beverages. That's why you do see a lot of experimentation in the cocktail space, in the cocktail mocktail space, the party space, so to speak, non-alcoholic beverages. But I feel like no innovation has happened in the tea and RTD beverages. So we are glad to be going after that space and building a brand that resonates with the youth and hopefully makes tea drinking as cool, if not cooler, than coffee.
Intrigued by what you heard in today's podcast? Would you like to learn more from our global network of tea biz journalists and tea experts? Remember to visit the Tea Biz website for more comprehensive coverage. That's www.tea-biz.com. Thanks for listening. Farewell till next week.
What's so special about Hero Bread's soft, fluffy, and delicious breads, buns, and tortillas? Hero Bread serves up 0 to 1 grams of net carbs, 5 to 11 grams of protein, and high fiber in every delicious serving. Made with natural ingredients, Hero Bread supports gut health, promotes weight management, and helps maintain blood sugar. Hero also drops other limited edition ultra-low net carb goodies like rich, flaky croissants and buttery brioche slider rolls. Head to hero.co to shop today.
Produced by Adavita Studios. Connect your voice to the world.